Little Princess, Part 1. Part 1. Sarah. Once on a dark winter's day, when a yellow fog hung so thick and heavy in the streets of London that the lamps were lighted and shop windows blazed with gas as they do at night, an odd-looking little girl sat in a cab with her father and was driving right slowly through the big thoroughfares. She sat with her feet tucked under her and leaned against her father, who held her in his arms as she stared out the window at the passing people with a queer, old-fashioned thoughtfulness with her big eyes. She was such a little girl that one didn't expect to see such a look on her small face. It would have been an old look for a child of 12, and Sarah Crewe was only 7. The fact was, however, she was always dreaming and thinking odd things, and could not herself remember any time she had not been thinking things about grown-up people and the world they belonged to. She felt as if she had lived a long, long time. At this moment, she was remembering the voyage she had just made from Bombay with her father, Captain Crewe. She was thinking of the ship and Lascars as he suddenly to in front of it. Her children, here on hot deck, and some of young officers' wives who used to try to make her talk to them, and I don't think she said. Principally, she was thinking what a queer thing it was that one time in West India in the blazing sun, and then in the middle of the ocean, and then driving a strange vehicle through strange seas, where the day was as dark as the night. She found it so puzzling that she moved close to her father. "Papa," she said in a mysterious little voice which almost a whisper, "Papa." "What is it, darling?" Captain Crewe answered, holding her closer and looking down to her face. "What is Sarah thinking of? Is this the place?" Sarah whispered, cuddling still closer to him. "Is it, Papa?" "Yes, little Sarah. We are reaching at last." And though she was only 7 years old, she knew that he felt sad when he said it. It seemed to her many years since he had begun to prepare her mind for the place, and she always called it. Mother died when she was born, so Sarah had never known her mister. Her young, handsome, rich, petting father seemed to be the only relation she had in the world, and they always played together and had been fond of each other. She only knew he was rich because she had heard people say so when they thought she was not listening. And she had also heard her say that when she grew up she would be rich too. She did not know all that being rich means. She had always lived in a beautiful bungalow and had been used to seeing many servants who made salams to her and called her Missy Sahib and gave her her own way and everything. She had choice in pets and an ayah who worshipped her, and she had gradually learned that people who were rich had these things. That, however, was all she knew about it. During her short life, only one thing had troubled her, and that thing was the place she was to be taken in someday. The climate of India was very bad for children, and as soon as possible they were sent away from it, generally to England and to school. She had seen other children go away, and she heard her fathers and mothers talk about the letters they received from them. She had known that she would be obliged to go also, and though sometimes the fairer stories of voyage and new country had attracted her, she had been troubled by the thought that he could not stay with her. "Can you go to that place with me, Papa?" she had asked when she was 5 years old. "Couldn't you go to school too? I would help you with your lessons." "But you will not have to stay for a very long time, little Sarah," he had always said. "You'll go to a nice house where there'll be a lot of little girls, and you'll play together. and I will send you plenty of books, and you'll grow so fast that it seems scarcely a year before you are big enough and clever enough, and come back and take care of Papa." She had liked to think of that. To keep the house with Father, to write of him and sit at the head of his table, where he had dinner parties, to talk to him and read his books. That would be what she has liked the most in the world, and one must go away to the place in England to attain it. She must make up her mind to go. She did not care very much for other little girls, but if she had plenty of books, she could console herself. She liked books more than anything else, and was, in fact, always inventing stories of beautiful things and told them to her father. Sometimes she had told them to her father, and he had liked them as much as she did. "Well, Papa," she said softly, "if we're here, I suppose we must be resigning." He laughed at her old-fashioned speech and kissed her. He was not really at all resigning himself, though he knew he must keep that a secret. His quiet little Sarah had been a great companion to him, and he felt he should be a lonely fellow when, his return to India, he went into a bungalow, knowing he need not expect to see a small figure in his white frock come forward to meet him. He held her very closely in his arm as the cab rolled her into a big dull square, in which stood the house which was their destination. It was the big dull brick house, exactly like all others in this row, but that on the front door there shone a brass plate on which engraved in black letters, "Miss Minchin, Select Seminary for Young Ladies." "Here we are, Sarah," said Captain Crewe, making his voice sound as cheerful as possible. They lifted her out of the cab, and they mounted on steps and rang the bell. Sarah often thought afterward that the house was somehow exactly like Miss Minchin. It was respectful and well furnished, but everything in it was ugly, and the very armchairs seemed so to have heart bones in them. In whole, everything was hard and polished. Even red cheeks, a moon face of tall clock in the corner, had a severe varnished look. The drawing room into which they were ushered was covered by a carpet with a square pattern upon it. The chairs were square, and a heavy marble timepiece stood upon the heavy marble mantel. As she sat down and got on the stiff mahogany chairs, her cast got on quick looks about her. "I don't like it, Papa," she said, "but then I dare say soldiers, even brave ones, don't really like going into battles." Captain Crewe laughed outright at this. He was young and full of fun, and he never tired of hearing Sarah's queer speeches. "Oh, little Sarah," he said, "what shall I do when I have no one to say solemn things to me? No one else is as solemn as you are." "Well, why do solemn things make you laugh so?" inquired Sarah. "Because you are such fun when you say them," he answered, laughing still more. And suddenly he swept her into his arms and kissed her very hard, stopping laughing all at once and looking almost as if tears had come into his eyes. It was just then that Miss Minchin entered the room. She was very like her house, Sarah felt, tall and dull, respectable and ugly. She had large, cold, fishy eyes and a large, cold, fishy smile. It spread itself to a very large smile when she saw Sarah and Captain Crewe. She had heard a great many desirable things of a young soldier from a lady who had recommended her school to him. Among other things, she had heard that he was a rich father who was willing to spend a great deal of money on his little daughter. "It would be a great privilege to have charge of such a beautiful and promising child, Captain Crewe," she said, taking Sarah's hand and stroking it. "Lady Margaret had told me of her unusual cleverness. A clever child is a great treasure in an establishment like mine," said so quietly, with her eyes fixed upon Miss Minchin's face. She had thinking something odd as usual. Why does she say I'm a beautiful child? She was thinking. I'm not beautiful at all. Colonel Grange little girl Isabel's beautiful. She has dimples and rose-colored cheeks, and long hair the color of gold. I have short black hair and green eyes. Besides, where I am a thin child and not fair in the least. I'm one of the ugliest children I ever saw. She's beginning by telling a story. She was mistaken, however, in thinking she was an ugly child. She was not in the least like Isabel Grange, who had been the beauty of the regiment, but she had an odd charm of her own. She was a slim, supple creature, right off her age, and has an intense, attractive little face. Her hair was heavy and quite black, and only curled at the tips. Her eyes were greenish gray. It is true, they were big, wonderful eyes with long black lashes. And though she herself did not like the color of them, many other people did. Still, she was very firm in her belief that she was an ugly little girl, and she was not all irritated by Miss Minchin's flattery. I should be telling a story if I said she is beautiful, she thought, and I should know I was telling a story. I believe I am ugly as she is. In my way, what did she say that for? After she had known Miss Minchin longer, she learned why she had said it. She discovered that she had the same thing to each papa and mama who brought a child to her school. Sarah stood near her father and listened while he and Miss Minchin talked. They had been brought to the seminary because Lady Meredith, 2 little girls had been educated here, and Captain Crewe had great respect for Lady Meredith's experience. Sarah was to be what was known as a parlor boarder, and she was to enjoy even greater privileges than parlor boarders usually did. She was to have pretty bedroom and sitting rooms of her own. She was to have a pony and carriage, and a maid to take the place of Aya, who had been her nurse in India. I'm not the least anxious about her education, Captain Crewe said with a gay laugh as he held Sarah's hand and patted it. The difficulty will be to keep her from learning too fast and too much. She is always sitting with her little nose burrowing into books. She doesn't read them, Miss Minchin. She gobbles them up as if she was a little wolf instead of a little girl. She's always starving for new books to gobble, and she wants grown-up books, great big fat ones. French and German as well as English, history and biography and poets, all sorts of things. Drag her away from her books so she reads too much. Make her ride pony and roll. Go out and buy a new doll. She ought to play more with dolls. Papa, said Sarah, you see, if I went out and buy a new doll every few days, I should be more than I could pawn of. Dolls ought to be intimate friends. Emily is going to be my intimate friend. Captain Crewe looked at Miss Minchin, and Miss Minchin looked at Captain Crewe. Who is Emily? She inquired. That was Sarah, Captain Crewe said, smiling. Sarah's green gray eyes looked very solemn and quite soft, she answered. She is a doll I haven't got yet, she said. She is a doll Papa is going to buy for me. We're going out together to find her. I've called her Emily. She's going to be my friend when Papa is gone. I wanted her to talk to about him. Miss Minchin's large, fishy smile became very flattering indeed. What an original child, she said. What a darling little creature. Yes, said Captain Crewe, drawing Sarah close. She is a darling little creature. Take great care of her for me, Miss Minchin. Sarah stayed with her father at his hotel for several days. She remained with him until he sailed away again to India. They went out and visited many big shops together and brought many great things. And he thought, indeed, of great many more things than Sarah needed. And Captain Crewe was a rash, innocent young man, and wanted his little girl to have everything she admired and everything he admired himself. So between they collected a wardrobe much too grand for a child of 7. It were velvet dresses trimmed with costly furs, and lace dresses and embroidered ones, in hats with great soft ostrich feathers, and ermine coats and mugs, and boxes of tiny gloves and handkerchiefs, and silk stockings, in such abundant supplies that a polite young woman behind the counters whispered to each other that the odd little girl with big solemn eyes must be at least some foreign princess, perhaps the little daughter of an Indian Raja. And at last they found Emily, but they went to another toy shop and looked at many great dolls before they discovered her. I wanted to look as if she wasn't dull, really, Sarah said. I wanted to look as if she listened when I talked to her. A trouble with dolls, however, and put her head on one side and reflected as she said, a trouble with dolls is that I never seem to hear. So look at big ones and little ones. And dolls got black eyes and dolls got blue. And dolls got brown curls and dolls got golden braids. Dolls dressed and dolls undressed. You see, Sarah says when they were examined, one has no clothes. If, when I find her, she has no frocks, we can take her to a dressmaker and have her things made to fit. They will fit better if they are tried on. After a number of disappointments, they decided to walk and look at the shop windows and let the cab follow them. They have passed 2 or 3 places without even going in. When, as if they were approaching yet one more, Sarah suddenly started and clutched her jaws. "Oh, Papa!" she cried. "There's Emily!" A flush is rising to her face, and there was an expression in her green-gray eyes, as if she was recognizing someone she was intimate with and fond of. "She is actually waiting there for us," she said. "Let's go in to her." "Dear me," the captain crooned. "I feel as if we ought to have someone to introduce us." "You must introduce me, and I will introduce you," said Sarah. "But I knew her the minute I saw her, so perhaps she knew me too." Perhaps she had known her. She had certainly a very intelligent expression in her eyes. When Sarah took her in her arms, she was a large doll, but not too much to carry but easily. She had naturally curling brown golden hair, which hung like a mantle above her, and her eyes were deep, clear gray blue, with soft, thick eyelashes. Those were real eyelashes and not mere painted lines. "Of course," said Sarah, looking into her face as held on her knees. "Of course, Papa, this is Emily." So Emily was bought and actually taken to a children's outfitter's shop and was measured for a wardrobe as grand as Sarah's own. She had lace frocks too, and velvet and muslin ones, and hats and coats, and beautiful lace-trimmed underclothes, and gloves with handkerchiefs and furs. "I should like her always to look as if she has a child with a good mother," said Sarah. Captain Crew would really have enjoyed the shopping tremendously, but that a sad thought kept tugging at his heart. It all mean that he was going to be separated from his beloved once little comrade. He got out of bed in the middle of that night and went and stood down looking at Sarah, who lay asleep with Emily in her arms. Her black hair was spread out on a pillow, and only golden brown hair mingled on it. Both of them had lace-ruffled nightgowns, and both had long eyelashes which lay and curled over her cheeks. Emily looked so like a real child that Captain Crew felt glad she was there. He grew a big sigh and pulled his mustache with a boyish expression. "Hey, oh, little Sarah," he said to himself. "I don't believe you know how much your daddy will miss you." Next day, he took her to Miss Minchin's and left her there. He was to sail away next morning. He explained to Miss Minchin that his songlighters, Miss Sparrow and Skipworth, had charged his affairs in England and should give her any advice she wanted. and that they would pay the bill she sent for Sarah's expenses. He would write to Sarah twice a week, and she was still given every pleasure she asked for. She is a sensible little thing, and she never wants anything that it isn't safe to give her, he said. Then he went to Sarah and her little thing. Sarah sat on his knee and held apples of his coat in her small hands and looked long and hard at his face. Are you learning me by heart, little Sarah? He asked, stroking her hair. No, she answered. I know you by heart. You are inside my heart. And they put their arms around each other and kissed, as they would never let each other go. When the cab rolled away from the door, Sarah was sitting on the floor of her sitting room, with her hands under her chin and her eyes following it until she had turned the corner of the square. Emily was sitting by her, and she looked after her too. When Miss Minchin sent her sister, Miss Amelia, to see what the children was doing, she thought she could not open the door. I have locked it, said a queer, polite little voice from inside. I want to be quiet by myself, if you please. Miss Amelia was fat and dumpy, and stood very much in awe of her sister. She really was a better-natured person of the two, but she never disobeyed Miss Minchin. He went upstairs again, looking almost alarmed. I never saw such a funny, old-fashioned little sister, she said. She has locked herself in, and she is not making the least particle of noise. It's much better than if she kicked and screamed, as some of them do, Miss Minchin answered. I expected that child as much spoiled as she is would set the whole house in an uproar. If every child was giving her own way in everything she is. I've been opening her trunks and putting her things away, said Miss Amelia. I never saw anything like them. Sable and ermine on her coats and real Vaseline lace on her underclothing. You have seen some of her clothes. What do you think of them? I think they are perfectly ridiculous, said Miss Minchin softly. But they will look very well at the head of a line when we take the school children to church on Sunday. She had been provided as if she were a little princess. And upstairs in the locked room, Sarah and Emily sat on the door and stared on the corner round which the cab had disappeared. While Captain Crewe looked backward, waving and kissing his hand, as if he could not bear to stop. Bye.